Good morning, Monday morning, Garden of England. Well, the autumn's doing its thing, but a nice mild morning here, so fantastic. Well, a couple of things over the weekend. First of all, in the media, got a bit of coverage again on Sir Chris Hoy and his terminal cancer thing and his wife's MS. And then Jeremy Clarkson, big headlines about him being told not to eat red meat. And I find that, I'd love to speak to all of them. I mean, he's a farmer, for God's sake, surely he knows what's going on. But anyway, one can imagine that whoever's advising him not to eat red meat is also probably advising him to eat whole grains, to probably have low fat yogurt and all that other sort of mainstream view of things, which after all these years surely they realise has never worked and never probably will work. But what about the keto movement? What about the carnivore movement? What about them actually eating beef and red meat and ribeye steaks, and maybe that the most nutritious food on the planet could maybe help them all recover? But that's just stuff that obviously makes sense to me, having put thousands of hours in. But you know how the media are. The headlines about red meat just absolutely suits those vegans, doesn't it? And even this morning, The Guardian, which is increasingly a disgrace of a newspaper, has a big heading about white pasta, suggesting that maybe people begin to realise that it isn't very healthy. But then you open up the article and there's the scoffing remarks about low carb by the journalist, and then before you know where you are, whoever it is that's coming up with the solutions is saying how it's actually good for you, which is absolute and utter bunkum. But there you go. Same old in the media, reinforcing all the stuff we know that needs to be tackled. Remember, you can do what I do as a vegan, not very easily, because you've got to do lots of supplementation. Certainly do it as a vegetarian, and obviously as a carnivore, which some people say extreme. But then again, thousands of hours now of just hearing, not thousands, but certainly hundreds of hours of hearing amazing successes with almost every illness with the carnivore thing, especially as a cleansing diet. Certainly not that green stuff I believed in all those years ago, but there you go. So that's one thing, just to be aware of that, constant stuff, chipping away at anybody who cares to think there's an alternative. But anyway, let's get back to Mindstore for a moment. Big lesson here this morning, which comes into my consciousness. And it's this, that when we use our meditation, especially when we do it just to find an alternative to stress, in other words, sitting in a position, taking the 3 deep breaths, maybe a very slow head to toe relaxation. I feel my scalp relaxing, my scalp is relaxed, and so on, all the way down, off to the favourite place, the beach kind of thing, wherever you go, and then on the landscape, and maybe just on the landscape for its own sake. Possibly even introducing one of our mantras, that in our techniques, the mantra is a word that's associated with our goal, or our top 7 goals, and certainly that idea of the principal kind of goal, if you like, the super goal. Then what happens when we do this is, after a while, we become still, become calm. And in that calm state, I think it's impossible to deny that there's a connection. There's a connection, and if those of us who have the privilege of seeing the video, then you see something extraordinary happens when we actually purposefully make the connection. And so I suppose the thing is, I don't think anybody who uses our techniques or some other techniques gets to a point where they, using them, as it were, with dedication, with commitment, that they can actually deny there's a connection. I mean, how you explain the connection, of course, is up to you. I think I've said in recent times what I think it is. I'm pretty sure about that, to be honest, after all these years, 30 years, always knowing there was a connection, and I've kind of called it source so as not to offend anyone. But because we've all got beliefs, and I respect every one of those beliefs, it's a wide church, as it were, wide spectrum of beliefs. But nevertheless, the connection is important. Sometimes just to skim by the connection, just to quickly program a meeting or something of that nature, is probably not a smart idea. We know now that if we can actually use our technique, especially that media room, with our coaches, working through the connection, and then those extraordinary new tools that I've introduced recently, then of course magic happens. So we've got a week ahead of us. I mean, it's Monday morning, blink your eye and I'll be saying good morning, it's Monday here in the Garden of England, because the week will fly by at a pace that's quite frightening in many ways for so many of us as we get a little bit older, flying by. But will you maximise this week? Have you ready? And do it right now. Just think forward. What are the highlights of the week? What are the big things that's coming up? And make the commitment right now, as you think about them coming into your consciousness, that you are going to pre-program them. That you're going to pre-program in consultation with your coaches to seek advice, and to go into those events using your 3 fingers, tip of the tongue, being totally and utterly focused, and more importantly, present. But of course, as we said the other day there, these tools also work for those challenges that you're facing in the week ahead. How to go in and find solutions, how to use the screens, and again the advice of the coaches to figure out solutions that are going to work for you. Then of course you pre-program them. I mean, how cool is it that in just a matter of minutes we can have access to that consciousness that ordinary people running about their lives right now, rushing for their trains, rushing off their trains, heading to the offices and all the rest of it, don't even know exists. But you do. Have a cracker. I intend to. Dogs barking. See ya, Amora.